У нас загруженная повестка дня. Слышно всем? Во-первых, госпожа Мариетта Тудей, докладчик комитета, представит идеи и намерения в отношении своего доклада к 24-й ежегодной сессии в Хельсинки. Затем последуют дебаты. Далее будет выступление посла Томислава Лека, председателя экономического и экологического комитета ОБСЕ и постоянного представителя Боснии и Герцеговины при международных организациях в Вене. Это также будет сопровождаться дебатами. Затем будет презентация господина Халила Юрдакул Идгуден, координатора экономической и экологической деятельности ОБСЕ. Затем снова будут дебаты. Наконец, Идгуден будет выступать с презентацией специальной дискуссии на тему сотрудничества, повышения экономической безопасности и снижения экологических и экономических проблем в регионе ОБСЕ. Затем последует презентация господина Яныша Копача.
Скажите, пожалуйста, что нет перевода на итальянский язык?
Извините, нет перевода на итальянский язык. В чем дело? Есть? Есть? Нет, сейчас надо будет выяснить, в чем дело. Есть перевод? Извините, есть уже перевод. Затем презентация господина Яныша Копача, директора секретариата энергетического сообщества по тому же вопросу. Господин Копач присоединится к нам попозже. Прежде чем представить слово госпоже Тудей, позвольте мне представить нашу докладчицу. Госпожа Мариетта Тудей является членом Палаты депутатов Италии с 1913 года. С 2007 по 2012 год она была городским советником Чкивитавекия, Рим, и заместителем секретаря Римской провинции. Она была избрана в Палату депутатов 25 февраля 2013 года, где она является членом постоянного комитета по экономической деятельности, торговле и туризма и объединенного комитета по импичменту президента. Сейчас я представлю слово нашему докладчику госпоже Мариетте Тудей относительно идей и намерений докладчику на ежегодной сессии в Хельсинки. Желающие участвовать в дебатах, просьба записаться в секретариате комитета. Вам слово, госпожа Тудей. Окей.
Ok, grazie Presidente. Con questa sessione si compie l'ultima tappa prima della celebrazione a luglio dei 40 anni dall'atto finale di Helsinki. Io credo che sia compito di tutti noi rinnovare le ragioni, rafforzare le motivazioni che ci portarono a impegnarci reciprocamente sulla sicurezza e la cooperazione. 40 anni fa ad Helsinki si decise di dividere le questioni di interesse comune in 3 settori, che noi convenzionalmente chiamiamo i 3 cesti dell'OSCE. Il secondo di questi cesti, quello economico, è stato spesso considerato marginale rispetto agli altri 2. In realtà è proprio nel secondo cesto che, a mio avviso, lo spirito di Helsinki è riuscito in questi primi 4 decenni ad ottenere risultati più stabili e concreti, percorrendo a volte gli scenari che si prefiggeva la dimensione politica della nostra organizzazione. Oggi la cooperazione economica è una realtà tra tutti i nostri paesi. Ovviamente vi sono ancora molti passi da fare e nuove sfide da affrontare. La crisi finanziaria che si è innescata alla fine del 2008 ha reso ancora più evidente quanto i rapporti economici influenzino gli equilibri geopolitici globali. Di rigidità e di austerità non si sono dimostrate alle sfide economiche del nostro tempo. Tali misure rischiano di deprimere ancora di più l'impulso produttivo e le imprese, vanificando l'obiettivo primario che è il rilancio dell'economia dopo una crisi che ha colpito soprattutto le classi più povere. Per questo credo che il consolamento dei bilanci non possa prescindere da una sana strategia di crescita, di coesione sociale e di investimenti in scienza e tecnologia, fondamentali per il miglioramento delle condizioni di vita delle persone. L'OSCE deve avere un ruolo nell'esortare i governi nazionali a procedere verso una politica di rilancio degli investimenti. Nella relazione di luglio dovremo mettere in evidenza continuità e rinnovamento dello spirito di Helsinki, prendendo in esame più approfondito diversi punti enunciati proprio dall'atto di Helsinki e vedendo quali nuove sfide ognuno di essi ci presenta oggi dopo 40 anni. Chiaramente quello che andrò ad esporre sono solo delle idee non esaustive che sono certa verranno integrate e arricchite durante il dibattito che seguirà il mio intervento. Vorrei partire dalla sicurezza alimentare, che già nel 1975 l'atto di Helsinki definiva uno dei principali problemi economici mondiali e che richiede accresciuti ed efficaci sforzi per la sua soluzione. La nostra Assemblea se ne è occupata recentemente, penso al lavoro svolto dal mio predecessore Roger Williams e alla relazione della Commissione Politica del 2009 a Vilnius, redatta da Riccardo Migliori, che aveva come argomento proprio la sicurezza alimentare. E noi tutti oggi sappiamo che ciò che mette a rischio la sicurezza alimentare non è solo la mancanza di cibo, ma anche quella dell'acqua, che è una risorsa limitata e non disponibile ovunque. La mancanza di acqua e la sua disuguale distribuzione rappresenta una delle maggiori e più inaccettabili ingiustizie del mondo attuale. L'alimentazione rappresenta uno dei diritti fondamentali riconosciuto dalla comunità internazionale e sancito dall'articolo 25 della Dichiarazione universale dei diritti dell'uomo. La sicurezza alimentare è connessa ai temi della sicurezza internazionale. A questo proposito un esempio recente riguarda la primavera araba, soprattutto in Tunisia, dove la protesta, tra gli altri motivi chiaramente, fu innescata anche dal rincaro dei prezzi dei cereali. La sicurezza alimentare va vista nella prospettiva da un lato della stabilità internazionale, dall'altro dell'applicazione di nuove tecnologie e della necessità di nuovi stili di vita. In questo quadro va ricordato l'importante appuntamento di Expo 2015 di Milano, dal significativo titolo Nutrire il pianeta, energia per la vita. L'Expo di Milano sarà l'occasione migliore per confrontarsi sulle diverse contraddizioni del nostro tempo e del nostro mondo. C'è ancora chi soffre la fame, circa 870 milioni di persone denutrite nel biennio 2010-2012, e al contrario c'è chi soffre di disturbi di salute legati a un'alimentazione scorretta, troppo cibo. Ogni anno circa 1,3 miliardi di tonnellate di cibo vengono sprecate. Per questo motivo servono scelte politiche consapevoli, stili di vita sostenibili e un maggiore equilibrio tra disponibilità e consumo delle risorse. In questa direzione si muove il Protocollo di Milano, iniziativa che ha raccolto l'adesione di numerose organizzazioni, dalla quale potrà nascere lo stimolo per un rinnovato impegno di tutti i Paesi per garantire lo sviluppo di un'agricoltura sostenibile e la lotta allo spreco alimentare. L'OSCE può svolgere una funzione importante di facilitatore, di promotore in tutte queste direzioni, favorendo in particolare, attraverso la cooperazione, nuovi stili di vita. Si pensi al movimento del cosiddetto chilometro zero, oppure ai gruppi di acquisto, cittadini che si organizzano per acquistare direttamente dal produttore alimenti certificati e di qualità. Sono tutte reazioni sane e spontanee della società civile dei nostri Paesi, che dovrebbero essere fatte conoscere, trasmesse, promosse, per diffondere il più possibile sia un'alimentazione sana, sia un'alimentazione rispettosa dell'ambiente. Sul punto della sicurezza energetica, che è un altro tema che io credo sia fondamentale trattare nella relazione di Helsinki, io credo che sia necessario governare i processi per ridurre gli squilibri tra Paesi produttori e Paesi consumatori, anche con riferimento alla distribuzione. Questa sfida riguarda l'area OSCE, il bacino del Mediterraneo, e a mio avviso ruota su 4 aree critiche. La prima riguarda l'approvvigionamento energetico e la politica, perché se da un lato l'approvvigionamento energetico non può essere utilizzato come strumento di pressione politica, dall'altro i produttori di materie prime devono avere rassicurazioni circa il valore dei loro beni, che non possono essere sottoposti a convulsi cambi di prezzo. Un altro aspetto che dovremo affrontare è quello legato alla distribuzione efficace delle risorse energetiche, che dipende in primo luogo da un'adeguata rete di distribuzione. Servono iniziative idonee a stabilizzare anche il flusso delle risorse energetiche. E poiché l'OSCE comprende regioni dell'Asia centrale, particolare del Caspio, che sono tra le aree al mondo più ricche di idrocarburi, la cooperazione fra i paesi OSCE è indispensabile per giungere ad una maggiore razionalizzazione dell'intero sistema distributivo. La terza area critica riguarda, a mio avviso, la differenziazione delle fonti di approvvigionamento. L'autonomia energetica è da sempre un tema cruciale in tutta l'area OSCE. In questo senso, la diversificazione delle fonti favorisce la sostenibilità e l'equilibrio ambientale. Ultimo, ma non ultimo per importanza come fattore di sicurezza, credo che sia il risparmio energetico, inteso soprattutto come miglioramento, ammodernamento delle reti energetiche, in particolar modo di quelle elettriche, pubbliche, se penso a quelle pubbliche, sperimentando nuove tecnologie, come già stabilito nel cosiddetto pacchetto energia-clima al Consiglio europeo del 24 ottobre 2014. Io credo che queste siano tutte politiche pubbliche sulle quali avviare un più forte rapporto di cooperazione tra tutti i paesi OSCE. L'atto di Helsinki fa espressamente riferimento alla cooperazione per la ricerca di nuove fonti energetiche. Si riferiva soprattutto allo sviluppo di nuove tecnologie per l'utilizzo dell'energia nucleare, ma come è noto, dopo diverse crisi ambientali, l'energia nucleare viene oggi considerata con maggiore prudenza e lo stesso vale per gli idrocarburi. Nei prossimi decenni sarà necessario favorire un mercato dell'energia più articolato e sarà essenziale investire nella ricerca di nuove fonti di energia, in particolare quelle rinnovabili. Inoltre va sottolineato l'alto potenziale dell'economia verde per l'efficienza energetica, lo sviluppo sostenibile, la creazione di nuovi posti di lavoro e più in generale per la realizzazione degli obiettivi di sviluppo del millennio. Il quinto rapporto IPCC denuncia che le emissioni di gas serra sono in costante crescita e con rischi molto seri per il nostro pianeta. La conferenza di Lima del dicembre scorso ha adottato il documento Lima Call for Climate Action, che imposta le linee d'accordo definitivo sulla riduzione di emissioni di gas serra. L'accordo dovrà essere sottolineato dalla COP21 a Parigi nel dicembre di quest'anno. Rappresenterebbe il più importante accordo in materia di ambiente dal protocollo di Kyoto in poi. Mi auguro che da oggi al nostro appuntamento di Helsinki vi siano segnali di buona volontà verso questo approccio comune per la riduzione delle emissioni di gas serra. Il futuro verterà tra l'altro sui cosiddetti INDSC, cioè sugli impegni dei singoli paesi per il raggiungimento degli obiettivi climatici. Nel primo trimestre 2015 i paesi presenteranno la quantificazione dei propri impegni. A questo scopo l'Assemblea OSCE deve sollecitare parlamenti e governi alla ratifica degli accordi, in linea con quanto adottato dalle COP, e impegnarli maggiormente nella strategia per la crescita verde dell'OSCE. Concludo con alcune brevissime considerazioni sul momento attuale. Io credo che una delle cause principali della crisi attuale derivi dal fallimento delle grandi istituzioni finanziarie e l'OSCE, come più ribadito anche dai miei predecessori, deve stimolare gli Stati ad adottare norme che limitino le speculazioni basate sul rischio e promuovere investimenti in ripresa. Proprio in questo contesto va rafforzata la cooperazione economica. La crisi ucraina ha indotto alcuni paesi ad adottare sanzioni economiche contro la Russia e la Russia ad adottare controsanzioni. A prescindere, colleghi, dalle ragioni politiche che hanno indotto gli Stati ad applicarle, è innegabile che questo ha messo in difficoltà il processo di rilancio dell'economia in Europa, ma più in generale nel mondo, dando vita ad un quadro distonico rispetto allo spirito di Helsinki. E il meccanismo distonico delle sanzioni, a mio avviso, consiste nel fatto che danneggiano sia chi le subisce sia chi le applica. Si crea una spirale antieconomica che investe direttamente la stabilità. Da ultimo, credo, ieri abbiamo avuto il Forum Mediterraneo, che nella nostra sessione annuale dovremo ribadire la necessità che l'OSCE si avvalga del processo Helsinki +40 per rafforzare la cooperazione con i partner mediterranei, agendo come mediatore per le iniziative che questi paesi mettono in campo per promuovere la crescita ed attrarre investimenti. L'OSCE dovrebbe infine cooperare con gli Stati dell'Europa meridionale e con i partner dell'Africa settentrionale nell'individuazione di strategie condivise per la gestione dei flussi migratori con rotte sicure, piani efficaci di resettlement, l'esame delle domande di asilo nei paesi di partenza, in un quadro di maggiore sicurezza e stabilità dell'area. Io credo che noi dobbiamo profondere ogni sforzo affinché tragedie come quella a cui abbiamo assistito negli ultimi anni, nelle quali hanno perso la vita di migliaia di migranti, non debbano più ripetersi. Grazie mille. Chiaramente, come dicevo prima, sono solamente degli spunti della relazione, diciamo relativi alla relazione che vorrei presentare ad Helsinki, e chiaramente sono degli spunti che mi auguro possano essere arricchiti e approfonditi proprio nella sede di questo dibattito. Grazie mille.
Спасибо вам, госпожа Тадей. Переходим к следующему выступающему. Я приветствую посла Лека. Перед тем, как представить ему слово, и я хотела бы представить его. Как вы знаете, посол Лека – постоянный представитель Боснии и Герцеговины при международных организациях в Вене и председатель экономического и экологического комитета ОБСЕ. До его назначения постоянным представителем господин Лека был послом Сербии и Монтенегро. Господин Лека работал в различных должностях в течение своей карьеры. Он был главным оперативным директором геофизика, геофизические исследования, председателем правления компании «Конструктор», руководителем по внешним связям и связям с общественностью авиационной группы «СОКО», генеральным директором аэропорта Загреб, директором и главным менеджером «Агро-Рио-Коп», продовольственной и сельскохозяйственной компании, советником заместителя министра иностранных дел по экономическим вопросам. Посол Лека имеет ученую степень в области внешней торговли Загребского университета. Вам слово, господин посол.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Distinguished members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and honor to address the members of this General Committee on the occasion of the 14th winter meeting of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. The Serbian chairmanship has entrusted me with responsibility to chair the Economic and Environmental Committee in 2015. Our main guidelines for the work of the committee in 2015 are the Serbian chairmanship's priorities in the second dimension, namely the good water governance and the countering of the corruption in the OSCE area. In addition to that, the 2014 Swiss chairmanship activities in the second dimension were heralded with two Ministerial Council decisions adopted in Basel last December. These MC decisions give us a mandate to be more involved and active in dealing with the reduction of the natural disasters and the prevention of corruption, both being of a great importance for our citizens and our governments. Ladies and gentlemen, after conducting consultations with the Serbian chairmanship, the delegations of participating states, and the Office of the Coordinator of the OSCE Economic and Environmental Activities, we have produced the work plan of the committee for 2015, and here I would like to share with you some general outlines. The Economic and Environmental Committee will hold 6 thematic meetings. Allow me to briefly introduce them. Migration in March. Thematic meeting on migration will focus on promoting comprehensive labor migration management, as well as further exploring the potential for enhanced engagement with international partners such as the International Labour Organization, the International Organization for Migration, the Global Forum on Migration and Development, and the International Center for Migration Policy Development. Anti-corruption and anti-money laundering in April. This thematic meeting will explore how to better interlink anti-corruption mechanisms and anti-money laundering systems in order to effectively detect and prosecute corruption and money laundering offenses. Disaster risk reduction in May. It aims to provide an opportunity to discuss the OSCE's plans and activities in the follow-up to the MC decision number 6/14 on enhancing disaster risk reduction, adopted in the Ministerial Council in Basel last year. It will also focus on the possible linkages of OSCE's activities with the post-2015 Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which is expected to be adopted at the Third World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction on 14 to 18 March 2015 in Sendai, Japan. Energy security in July. While energy issues risk becoming a potential source of tension, they also offer many opportunities for fruitful cooperation between energy supplier, consumer and transit countries. This meeting will take stock of the most recent activities and explore future perspectives toward enhancing energy security and sustainability in the OSCE area. Transport, September. Transport thematic meeting will deal with strengthening dialogue and the exchange of best practices in the fields of trade, transport and customs, including regional transport and custom initiatives. Climate change in the OSCE context, October. Climate change increasingly contributes to the shaping of a security agenda. Keeping in mind that in the Madrid Ministerial Declaration on Environment and Security, climate change is referred to as a threat magnifier, the OSCE has deepened its involvement in this topic. This thematic meeting will aim at taking stock of the relevance of climate change in the OSCE area, particularly from the security perspective. It will also provide an opportunity to present OSCE's activities related to climate change and discuss avenues for possible future work also in light of global processes in this field. The other important aspect of the work of Economic and Environmental Committee in 2015 will be steered at bringing in the perspective of the field operations to our discussions. In this respect, we will use every opportunity to invite to the EEC meeting those OSCE heads of missions who will be in Vienna on the occasion of their regular reporting to the PC. And this will start already next week with the address of the head of the OSCE mission in Serbia. We also recognize that women's participation in the economic sphere contributes significantly towards economic recovery and the creation of cohesive societies, and that implementation of existing commitments on eliminating discrimination against women and promoting equal opportunities for women in the economic and environmental sphere is essential to the security and stability of the OSCE region. Having that in mind, the EEC intends to incorporate and integrate the gender perspective in the ongoing activities and programs. Ladies and gentlemen, by adopting the Ministerial Council Decision 5/14 on preventing of corruption, the Ministerial Council has tasked the Economic and Environmental Committee, and I quote, with input and contributions from OSCE Secretary General and the OSCE field operations to present a report to the Permanent Council no later than 1st June 2015, providing options for strengthening the current OSCE capacity on combating and preventing corruption and for enhancing coordination among the OSCE executive structures in that field, taking available resources into consideration, unquote. In order to produce a meaningful report, as a chair of the EEC, I have created an open-ended informal working group, the Group of Friends, with the aim to support the EEC in preparing the report. With the pleasure, I can note that the delegates from the number of the delegations have embarked, and that the group, under the coordination of our Greek colleagues, has produced a questionnaire on corruption. It is about to be distributed among the OSCE structures. Its intention is to gather information and views from a wide range of OSCE staff and leadership personnel to help guide the organization as it assists participating states in preventing and combating corruption. Pursuant to that, a relevant report will be produced. I intend to present the report to the Permanent Council in course of May. Ladies and gentlemen, the number of the topics is of cross-cutting nature, and with the need to be examined from cross-dimensional and all-inclusive approach. Relative to that, and after consultations with the Serbian chairmanship and the chairs of the three committees, we have decided to organize, as a sort of novelty, 2 joint meetings of all 3 committees. The aim is to process the phenomena of terrorism and migration from different angles and perspectives, and with the belief of possible contribution to consensus shaping on our way to Belgrade's ministerial in December. This year's Economic and Environmental Forum focuses on good water governance and will be held in September in Prague, under the heading Water Governance in the OSCE Area, Increasing Security and Stability Through Cooperation. This issue remains very topical and critical as water is becoming increasingly an essential element of national and regional security. In this regard, the topic of good water governance should promote regional and cross-border cooperation in both prevention and remediation side, thus invigorating overall security and stability within the OSCE area and beyond, including the partners for cooperation. On our way to Prague's forum, 2 preparatory meetings are supposed to setting the tone for successful deliberation of this year's forum. The first preparatory meeting was already held here in Vienna on 26th and 27th January, and the second will take place in Belgrade by middle of May. The sojourn in Belgrade will offer to the participants a possibility of an insight to the catastrophic floods which hit the Western Balkans in May last year, exemplifying the grave consequences of the climate changes and amplifying the need for the improvements in the water governance. Ladies and gentlemen, I am firmly convinced that the Prague Economic and Environmental Forum deliberations, coupled with the work of the committee and with the Economic and Environmental Dimension Implementation meeting in October, which will be devoted to the fight against corruption, that they all together will create the solid foundations for a meaningful deliverables at the Ministerial Council in Belgrade. In conclusion, I am confident that in 2015, the OSCE Economic and Environmental Dimension, with the help of all participating states and all OSCE structures, will accomplish further progress on many related issues. I trust that the topics just outlined set out the areas where we can and have to cooperate further to make best use of all potentials and to strengthen the work of the second dimension. Further utilization of economic and environmental dimension could substantially contribute to the overall security in the OSCE area. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your responses and comments with a view at fruitful and effective cooperation. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Спасибо вам за выступление. Записались. Демили, Франция, вам слово.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Mes chers collègues, de l'eau, partout de l'eau, mais nulle goutte ne nous restait, écrivait le poète anglais Samuel Coleridge. C'est à ce dramatique constat que l'humanité aboutira si rien n'est fait. Cette question de l'eau, sur laquelle je porterai spécifiquement mon intervention, prend une place croissante dans les conférences et dans les discussions internationales. Elle est, dans certaines zones comme l'Asie centrale, par exemple, un enjeu vital et géostratégique cardinal. Elle pourrait même devenir un enjeu de conflit, encore un. Elle est donc un enjeu collectif mondial. Le choix du Conseil permanent en matière environnementale et la présence de Monsieur l'ambassadeur Leko aujourd'hui parmi nous en témoignent. Monsieur Leko l'a rappelé, le 23e Forum économique et environnemental de 2015, préparé par le Conseil économique et environnemental, portera en effet sur la gouvernance de l'eau dans l'espace OSCE, accroissement de la sécurité et de la stabilité par la coopération. La question de l'eau est à ce point urgente qu'elle sera également traitée dans quelques semaines au cours du 7e Forum mondial de l'eau qui se tiendra en Corée du Sud du 12 au 17 avril. Ce forum a établi 4 axes d'action prioritaires. 1. La garantie de l'eau pour tous. 2. L'eau pour le développement et la prospérité. 3. L'harmonisation durable entre les hommes et la nature. Et enfin 4. L'élaboration des mécanismes de mise en œuvre réalistes. Nous voilà parvenus au terme de la décennie 2005-2015, consacrée par les Nations Unies au thème « L'eau, source de vie », laquelle visait à encourager les efforts pour assurer le respect des engagements internationaux pris dans le domaine de l'eau. Des progrès ont bien sûr été réalisés, mais il ne faut pas relâcher les efforts et je vais m'expliquer. L'eau est essentielle à la vie, c'est une banalité, aucun être vivant sur la planète Terre ne peut survivre sans elle. Il s'agit donc d'une condition sine qua non pour la santé humaine, bien sûr, et pour le bien-être ainsi que pour la préservation de l'environnement. Cependant, chaque année, des millions de personnes, en majorité des enfants, meurent de maladies liées au manque d'eau potable, au manque d'assainissement et aux problèmes d'hygiène. Selon l'Organisation mondiale de la santé, chaque jour, écoutez ce chiffre, il fait froid dans le dos, chaque jour, plus de 3000 enfants meurent à cause de l'eau sale et ou d'une mauvaise hygiène. Ils meurent aussi de l'indifférence et, permettez-moi de le dire, sur ce genre de problématique, de manque de médiatisation. Les maladies transmises par l'eau sont la deuxième cause de décès chez les enfants dans le monde après les maladies respiratoires. La pénurie d'eau la qualité médiocre de l'eau et un assainissement inadéquat ont un impact négatif sur la sécurité alimentaire, le choix des moyens de subsistance et les possibilités d'éducation pour les familles pauvres partout dans le monde. Cette pénurie d'eau affecte tous les continents. Elle fait partie des problèmes majeurs auxquels de nombreuses sociétés, et le monde d'ailleurs dans son ensemble, sont confrontés au XXIe siècle. La consommation d'eau a augmenté plus de 2 fois plus rapidement que la population au cours du siècle dernier. Le résultat est que certaines régions du monde entrent dans une situation particulièrement dangereuse. Près de 1,2 milliard de personnes, soit près de 1/5 de la population mondiale, vivent dans une zone où l'eau fait physiquement défaut et 500 millions d'autres personnes sont menacées du même sort. 1,6 milliard de personnes supplémentaires, soit presque un quart de la population mondiale, sont confrontées à une pénurie d'eau de type économique. J'entends par là les pays concernés ne disposant pas des infrastructures nécessaires pour utiliser l'eau des rivières et des nappes phréatiques. La pénurie d'eau est donc un phénomène à la fois naturel et d'origine humaine. Il y a suffisamment d'eau douce sur la planète pour 6 milliards d'êtres humains, mais sa répartition est inégale et trop d'eau est gâchée, polluée et gérée de façon non durable. Vous le savez, la population mondiale devrait passer de 7 milliards d'individus en 2015 à 8 milliards d'individus en 2025. La quantité moyenne d'eau douce disponible par habitant et par an devrait chuter de 6 600 à 4 800 mètres cubes, une réduction de presque un tiers. Si parallèlement la tendance actuelle à l'augmentation des prélèvements en eau se poursuit, entre la moitié et les 2 tiers de l'humanité, vous l'avez compris, devrait être en situation dite de stress hydrique en 2025, seuil d'alerte retenu par l'ONU et correspondant à moins de 1700 mètres cubes d'eau douce disponible par habitant et par an. Le risque d'une pénurie d'eau douce existe vraiment sur cette planète. L'un des problèmes majeurs en matière d'eau douce et d'alimentation humaine est posé par l'irrigation. Car pour nourrir toute la population de cette planète, la productivité agricole devra fortement augmenter. Alors que l'irrigation absorbe déjà aujourd'hui 70% des prélèvements mondiaux, une consommation déjà considérée excessive, celle-ci devrait encore augmenter de 17% au cours des 20 prochaines années. Le facteur déterminant de l'approvisionnement futur de l'humanité en eau douce sera donc le taux d'expansion de l'irrigation. Autrement dit, seule une nette amélioration de la gestion globale de l'irrigation permettra de réellement maîtriser la croissance de la consommation. Un autre enjeu de taille pour les années à venir est celui de la satisfaction de l'ensemble des besoins en eau potable de l'humanité. Aujourd'hui déjà, 1 habitant sur 5 n'y a pas accès. Or, selon l'ONU toujours, sur les 33 mégapoles de plus de 8 millions d'habitants qui existeront dans 15 ans, 27 d'entre elles seront situées dans les pays les moins développés et donc les moins à même de pouvoir répondre aux besoins. En outre, même si de légères diminutions de la consommation en eau sont observées depuis quelques années aux États-Unis et en Europe, les prévisions sont alarmistes, avec 40% d'augmentation de la consommation municipale et domestique dans les 20 ans qui viennent. Pour tenter d'inverser cette tendance, diverses solutions existent qui permettent de diminuer la consommation en eau et d'en limiter les pertes. Améliorer l'efficacité des techniques d'irrigation et surtout généraliser l'usage des méthodes les plus performantes, vous l'avez compris. Rénover les structures de production et de distribution d'eau potable et bien sûr en construire de nouvelles. Préserver les réserves. Lutter contre la pollution, entre autres en assainissant les eaux usées. Et bien sûr, recycler l'eau. Mais toutes ces mesures demanderont d'énormes investissements et seront très coûteuses. Ce seront donc les décisions politiques au niveau national et international, ainsi que les priorités d'investissement des pays et des agences de financement qui joueront un rôle déterminant dans la gestion future du risque de pénurie d'eau à travers le monde. Ce problème n'est pas lointain de la zone OSCE. Il lui est voisin, je pense bien sûr à l'Afrique du Nord, ou il lui est même intérieur, je pense à l'Asie centrale. Si par exemple, Jusque maintenant, la question de l'accès à l'eau n'a été source d'aucun conflit militaire. Il nous appartient de maintenir cet état de fait en utilisant tous les moyens et instruments dont nous disposons, et particulièrement les accords bilatéraux et multilatéraux. J'ai commencé mon propos par une situation assez alarmante. J'aimerais que cette intervention emporte votre conviction et qu'ensemble nous puissions affirmer, comme Mark Twain, que, je cite, « consommer avec modération, l'eau ne peut pas faire de mal ». Voilà, Madame la Présidente, mes chers collègues, ce dont je souhaitais vous faire part et je vous remercie de votre attention.
Спасибо. Следующий записался Эллисон, Канада. Вам слово, господин Эллисон.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I also want to thank to both presenters today. My remarks are directed to the rapporteur just in terms of some suggestions, and I just want to say to all parliamentarians, it's great to be here, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion as we plan the work that this committee will be accomplishing at our annual session in Helsinki this summer. I'd like to say a few words on the important subject of maternal and child health. Maternal and child health is a complex issue that connects a number of economic development challenges. A healthy population is more likely to be better educated, to live longer, and to be more prosperous. Health is also closely linked to social justice, peace, and comprehensive security. We are less than a year away from the target date for achieving the Millennium Development Goals, known as the MGDs. Unfortunately, although we've made good progress over the last few years, it seems unlikely that we'll meet MGD 4 to reduce child mortality by 2/3 from 1990 levels, and MDG 5 to reduce the maternal mortality ratio by 3/4 from the 1990 levels by the end of 2015. With more work to be done, the health and well-being of women and children must be a priority for the post-2015 development framework. Both international development assistance and national policies have an important role to play in strengthening global health strategies for women and children post-2015. Canada, for example, will contribute an additional $3.5 billion to initiatives related to maternal and child health over the next 5 years, building on the Muskoka initiative that our government announced in 2010. Colleagues, economic issues have always been a key part of the OSCE agenda, reflecting the organization's comprehensive approach to security. Our Assembly, therefore, is in a good position to examine the linkages between sustainable development, including the need to improve maternal and child health and security. At the Special Summit on Sustainable Development in New York City this coming September, world leaders are expected to adopt a new post-2015 development agenda. If we want to advance sustainable development and end poverty, the health and well-being of women, children, and newborns must remain a priority in this new global framework. To that end, I am suggesting to our rapporteur to examine and include ways that the OSCE parliaments and the OSCE itself can contribute to global efforts to improve maternal and child health in her report and propose resolutions at the OSCE annual session in Helsinki this summer. I look forward to further collaboration and discussion on this important subject. Thank you very much for your attention.
Спасибо. Следующее слово господин Лихачев, Россия. Вам слово, господин Лихачев.
Merci, Madame Présidente, chers collègues, les amis. Мне хотелось бы вернуться к тому разговору, который начал посол Лека, о тех приоритетах, которые сегодня стоят перед нами и которые мы должны взять в самую активную работу. В этом сообществе прагматиков, я имею в виду присутствующих за этим круглым столом, политиков, парламентариев, дипломатов, совершенно очевидно, что процесс флуктуации, процесс вулканизации мировой региональной экономики, кризис международной валютной системы не могут представлять собой длительный процесс. Они требуют и адекватной реакции от каждого государства, от международных институтов и структур, и в этом процессе парламентарии могут сыграть очень серьезную роль. Мне кажется, что надо согласиться с теми предложениями, идеями, которые посол Лека выдвинул по приоритетам работы экономического измерения Парламентской ассамблеи Совета Европы, Ну и подчеркнуть, что есть и другие, не менее интересные, не менее фундаментальные и не менее органические для сегодняшнего дня важные темы, которые позволят решать очень эффективно многие политические катаклизмы, политические проблемы, выходить из атмосферы коллизий и санкций. И одной из такой тем, с моей точки зрения, является наша парламентская в рамках международной организации под названием Парламентская ассамблея ОБСЕ проекта о сотрудничестве в рамках создания общеевропейского экономического пространства от Лиссабона до Владивостока, реализация идеи установления и развития самых тесных отношений, в том числе функциональных, институциональных, международно-правовых, нормативных, etc., между Европейским Союзом и новой международной организацией Евразийский экономический союз. Очень важно, что сегодня все высшее руководство Европейского Союза, я имею в виду председателя комиссии господина Юнкера, председателя Евросовета господина Туска, Могерини, комиссара по внешней политике и, конечно, господина Шульца, председателя Европейского парламента. Их позиция на поддержку этого проекта и на реализацию сотрудничества, взаимодействия с новой международной организацией, которая представляет собой структуру, основанную на принципах международного права, устава ООН, на международных стандартах ВТО. И мне кажется, что мы могли бы подумать о некой системе, может, сначала морально-политической, затем организационной, содействия вот такого рода проектам. И с моей точки зрения было бы целесообразно, может быть, в ближайшее время, во время сербского или немецкого председательства, заслушать доклад, подготовленный вместе Брюсселем, Москвой, Астаной, Минском и Ереваном, я назвал 4 государства членов этой организации, с тем, чтобы действительно европейская, прежде всего, экономика, составная часть экономики мирового экономического порядка, развивалась и обеспечивала режим безопасности, обеспечивала национальный интерес, обеспечивала суверенные права каждого государства, входящего в нашу организацию. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Я приветствую господина Идгудена. Прежде чем вам дать слово, я хотела бы представить его, который является координатором экономической и экологической деятельности ОБСЕ с февраля 2013 года. С 1997 года по 2003 год он был заместителем секретаря Министерства энергетики и природных ресурсов Турции, ответственным за политику в области водных ресурсов и горнодобывающих отраслей. Господин Идгуден является также вице-председателем горной и химики-ориентированной группы «Этибанк» 1989 по 1991 годах и совсем недавно стал членом Совета директоров производителя стальных труб Барусана Маннесмана. Он также является консультантом по вопросам, касающимся экономики, энергетики, и энергетической эффективности и каспийской геополитики. Вам слово, господин Идгуден.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Distinguished members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to participate today in the 14th winter meeting of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and address the Committee on Economic Affairs, Science, Technology and Environment. I would like to start my intervention by presenting the 23rd OSCE Economic and Environmental Forum process that will focus on water governance in the OSCE area, increasing security and stability through cooperation. The first preparatory meeting of the forum took place in January in Vienna. Participants had the opportunity to exchange views about best practices in water governance in the participating states and discuss how the OSCE could efficiently contribute to strengthening cross-sectoral coordination, transparency, engagement of various stakeholders, and other aspects of good water governance. Building up on the recommendations generated during the first event of the forum process, a second preparatory meeting will take place in Belgrade in May, followed by a concluding one to be organized in Prague on 14th till 16th of September. I would like to take this opportunity to invite the Parliamentary Assembly to actively contribute to this process. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now briefly outline the thematic priorities for my office for the year 2015 by starting with some planned economic activities. Corruption remains among key factors that impinge on and distort good governance, management of public funds, and competitive markets. If unsuppressed, it determines economies, it undermines economies, social protection, the trust of citizens in democratic institutions and processes. Combating the evil requires, first of all, detection and elimination of the causes and conditions of corruption through the development and implementation of a system of corruption prevention measures. With this in mind, the 2014 Basel Ministerial Council decision on prevention of corruption provides the OSCE with a broad mandate to assist its participating states in stepping up their corruption prevention efforts. We plan to launch in the spring of 2015 the OSCE Guide on Combating Corruption. In addition, in cooperation with the OSCE field operations, we will continue to provide assistance to participating states in implementing their commitments in this area. In particular, those related to the UN Convention Against Corruption and the Financial Action Task Force recommendations. My office also plans to continue cooperating closely with the field operations in promoting a participatory approach in the prevention of corruption, increase the institutional capacity and skills of key practitioners, and develop joint multi-stakeholder activities aimed at enhancing national corruption prevention policies in line with international standards. Particular attention will be given to selected Central Asian countries that expressed an interest to benefit from targeted capacity building and training activities. In response to these requests, the extra budgetary project proposal on fostering a participatory approach towards preventing corruption in Central Asia will be presented to the participating states for support in the coming months. Building further on the adoption of the Basel MC decision on prevention of corruption and the recommendations of the Regional Corruption Prevention Workshop held in Batumi in Georgia in December 2014, right after the Ministerial Council, the office plans to organize in Chisinau, Moldova, a follow-up seminar with a focus on business integrity and anti-bribery issues in April of this year. Determined to assist anti-corruption officials of OSCE participating states in Eastern Europe and the South Caucasus in addressing legislative and regulatory needs, this workshop will provide an insight into the available mechanisms and patterns of cooperation between the public and private sectors in preventing corruption. Also, the office will continue its cooperation with the OECD Anti-Corruption Network for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, including in the form of a joint corruption prevention event planned in Croatia in June. My office will join efforts with the TNT Border Security and Management Unit in the implementation of the extra budgetary project entitled Anti-Corruption interactive training program for border guards, customs services, and anti-corruption authorities of Moldova and Ukraine. The project, which is pending extra budgetary funding, aims at enhancing the capacities of border guards, customs services, and anti-corruption authorities in Moldova and Ukraine to more effectively investigate and prosecute corruption cases with emphasis on cross-border related challenges. Corrupt officials often engage in money laundering and attempt to present stolen or earned illegally funds as earned legitimately. They may launder money by moving illegal funds through the international financial system in order to conceal their criminal origin and enjoy the proceeds of their crimes. As a result, states should enhance their regulatory and supervisory systems to oversee private sector compliance with anti-money laundering rules. Therefore, in the area of anti-money laundering, my office, in cooperation with the field operations and partner organizations, will continue providing support to strengthening the capacities of participating states officials to more successfully initiate, investigate, and prosecute cases of money laundering, as well as to promote interagency cooperation. Following a request by the Prosecutor General's Office and the Financial Intelligence Unit of Azerbaijan, the Office, in partnership with the OSCE Project Coordinator in Baku, plans to organize in Baku this spring a training for law enforcement agencies and prosecutors on corruption investigations and a training for the Financial Intelligence Unit on investigating corruption cases and money laundering. Building further upon last year's regional training on cross-border cooperation and money laundering that took place in Vienna, my office intends to hold, with the support of the UNODC, a regional workshop on supporting successful prosecutions and other disruptions by building, enhancing, and networking financial investigation capacity in national law enforcement agencies in Tashkent this spring. Also, together with the project coordinator in Ukraine, my office will work on the development and implementation of an extra budgetary project on combating money laundering that will assist the Ukrainian authorities in conducting money laundering and financing of terrorism national risk assessments. Contemporary economic realities call for enhanced harmonization of transport and customs operations that impact trade and commerce. Efficient border management policies create simplified border crossing procedures that create favorable conditions for diversified trade activities. In the area of transport, trade, and customs, my office will remain active on capacity building and exchange of best practice activities. For example, we plan to conduct in autumn in Bishkek, in cooperation with the OSCE Center in Bishkek and the World Customs Organization, a regional transit conference particularly aimed at officials from landlocked developing countries in Central Asia and the South Caucasus. Together with the OSCE office in Tajikistan, the UN Economic Commission for Europe, and the government of Tajikistan, we are planning to co-organize in Dushanbe in June the 13th expert group meeting under the UNEC's Euro-Asian Transport Links project. Labor migration is a transnational phenomenon that cannot be managed or addressed solely at the national level. Therefore, development of effective, fair, and durable labor migration policies and practices requires cooperation among all states involved in this process. It is important to recognize that an effective labor migration policy should be protecting migrant workers and optimizing the benefits of labor migration for both countries of origin and destination. Labor migration management remains among the priorities of my office. Our office will continue to promote a comprehensive approach to migration management that supports legal migration and reduces irregular migration by facilitating regional dialogue, cooperation, capacity building activities, and exchanges of good practices. Recently, we jointly with the IOM has produced a Russian language handbook entitled Towards Evidence-Based Migration Policies with recommendations on migration data collection for Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Tajikistan. We will promote, disseminate, and support the use of this publication in the course of this year. Let me now turn to planned environmental activities for this year. The Madrid Ministerial Declaration on Environment and Security continues to provide the framework for our activities in the environmental field. I will now briefly touch upon 4 topics, namely water, disasters, climate change, and waste, and environmental good governance, cross-cutting all 4. The significance of water for prosperity and security is acknowledged around the globe. This year, the Global Risks Report of the World Economic Forum identified water crises as the top first global risk in terms of its possible impacts. Water is the focus of this year's Economic and Environmental Forum and has always been among our core activities in the second dimension's environmental field, in particular since the adoption of 2003 Maastricht Strategy. The Sava River, Dniester River, Chu-Talas Basin, and Kura River are some transboundary river basins where we have been engaged over the last several years through developing legal and institutional frameworks for cooperation. The OECD Water Governance Initiative that we have recently joined is a good example in this respect. Disaster risk reduction is an important component of water cooperation, as we have seen during the response to the devastating floods that affected southeastern Europe in May last year. In 2015 and beyond, the Basel Ministerial Council decision on enhancing disaster risk reduction will guide us in our activities. My office, in close cooperation with the field operations, will further strengthen national and regional capacities in disaster risk reduction. We will further deepen our engagement in fire management and will also expand our good practices in South Caucasus this year to Mongolia and Central Asia. We will also continue to collaborate with Aarhus centers in promoting community-based disaster risk reduction. Climate change will also remain a priority for my office. In 2015, together with our partners in the Environment and Security Initiative, ENFSEC, we continue to address security implications of climate change in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and the South Caucasus in partnership with the European Commission's Instrument for Stability and the Austrian Development Agency. As part of this work, we will, for example, soon finalize a transboundary climate change adaptation strategy for the Dniester River Basin, shared by Moldova and Ukraine, which will serve as best practice example for other shared river basins worldwide. My office, together with field operations, will also continue its activities on hazardous waste and substances. In Central Asia, we are on these risks posed by uranium mining legacy sites and facilitate dialogue to better address these risks. This work will benefit from the Aarhus centers in the region. In Eastern Europe this year, we will finalize 2 projects, training of border management officers in Moldova and Ukraine in the prevention of illegal trafficking of hazardous waste, as well as development of safety regulations for demarcation works in the radioactively contaminated area on the Belarus-Ukraine border. Strengthening civil society and good governance remains firmly at the center of our environmental activities. Together with our field operations for over a decade now, we have been supporting participating states in implementing environmental good governance principles through the UNEC Aarhus Convention on access to information, public participation in decision-making, and access to justice in environmental matters. The Aarhus centers are our primary tools in this endeavor. There are currently 57 OSCE-supported Aarhus centers operating in 14 countries across the OSCE region. Access to justice also continues an important pillar of our work. As we speak now, my office is holding a workshop in Tbilisi for judges from Eastern Europe and the South Caucasus region. The workshop aims at enhancing and exchanging knowledge and experience among the judiciary on procedural requirements of the Aarhus Convention. We will also continue our direct support to civil society organizations that address environmental and security challenges at community level, mainly through the CASE NGO Small Grants Program. Since its launching, a total of 63 NGO projects received CASE support in Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Tajikistan. As you can see, all these activities require effective partnerships at the national level among governments, agencies, civil society, and parliaments, at the regional level among countries, or at the international level among different international actors such as the Environment and Security Initiative. Referring to partnerships, I would also like to emphasize our engagement with the Mediterranean Partners for Cooperation. Sharing good practices and experience beyond the OSCE region is one of the areas we engage in with Partners for Cooperation. This year, we will consolidate the results of our cooperation with the Mediterranean partners within the so-called Valencia follow-up process that promotes a dialogue on environment and security issues. As part of this process, we organized 2 expert-level workshops, one in Amman in 2012 and the other one in Vienna last December, to map environment and security challenges in the region and enable sharing of experiences. At the end of my statement, I would like to highlight also some planned activities in the field of energy that will build upon activities undertaken in the past years, also taking into account the 2 decisions adopted at the 2013 Ministerial Council in Kiev. The dissemination of knowledge on ways to increase the protection of non-nuclear critical energy infrastructures is important tool to strengthen energy security in the OSCE region. In this context, and to implement Ministerial Council Decision 6/13, my office is currently developing a handbook of best practices to protect electricity networks from natural disasters. We hope to be able to release it later this year. We are also planning a range of activities in cooperation with the OSCE field operations in order to promote best practices in the field of sustainable energy development. Finally, I would like to refer to the importance of expanded cooperation with specialized international agencies in order to take advantage of their unique knowledge base. My office will continue to work with the UNECE, Sustainable Energy Division, Energy Charter Secretariat, the International Energy Agency, and NATO, as well as with the organizations which make up the Vienna Energy Club. Thank you very much for your attention.
Спасибо, господин Юдгаден. Уважаемые коллеги, мы прослушали все доклады. Теперь я хотела бы спросить госпожу Тудей, господин посол Лека, господин Юдгаден, хотели бы прокомментировать выступление? Нет желающих? Тогда, если нет желания прокомментировать, тогда переходим к специальному обсуждению сотрудничества в области укрепления энергетической безопасности и нейтрализации экологических и экономических вызовов в регионе ОБСЕ. Прежде чем приступить к обсуждению, хотела бы сказать несколько слов о проблеме, которую мы будем обсуждать. Проблематика энергетической безопасности находится в центре внимания современных государств в балансировании, с одной стороны, независимости и обязанностью защищать своих граждан, и, с другой стороны, зависимостью и международными обязательствами. Нет необходимости напоминать всем что энергетические ресурсы и генерирующий потенциал, будь то природные или возобновляемые углеродные, или углеродно-нейтральные источники, распределены на нашей планете неравномерно, несправедливо и без учета политических границ, без определения географии населения. Я хотела бы использовать пример моей собственной страны. Кыргызстан обладает большим гидроэнергетическим потенциалом и занимает 3-е место по объему в регионе СНГ, однако имеет малые запасы ископаемого топлива. В соседних странах, расположенных вниз по течению, ситуация противоположная. Мы импортируем около 40% газа из Узбекистана и Казахстана. Причины разные. Кыргызская энергосистема сложилась в основном в период существования Советского Союза как часть единого топливно-энергетического комплекса Средней Азии. Управление комплексом осуществлялось из единого центра по единым ценам. Теперь, после развала Советского Союза, прекращено централизованное управление. Цены сейчас разные. Так, значительная разница между себестоимостью электроэнергии, вырабатываемой на тепловых электростанциях и гидроэлектростанциях. Проблемой стало использование гидроэнергетических источников, таких как река Нарын, которая протекает через Кыргызстан и Узбекистан. Для энергетического сектора Кыргызстан сегодня необходимо $180 миллионов США. Целью удовлетворения будущих энергетических потребностей нельзя рассчитывать ни на нефть, ни на уголь, ни на газовую энергию для снижения негативного воздействия на экологическую систему. Наиболее перспективным возобновляющим источником энергии, получаемая с помощью гидроэлектростанций. В ближайшие десятилетия вероятное появление большого числа проектов геотермальных, ветровых и солнечных электростанций. Необходимо полагаться на возобновляемые виды энергии для преодоления глобальных парниковых эффектов. Много очень вопросов, где мы могли бы сегодня обсудить. Я надеюсь, что сегодняшняя дискуссия даст большие возможности делегатам для обмена мнениями о роли, которую играет ОБСЕ в повышении энергетической безопасности и снижении экологических и экономических проблем в регионе ОБСЕ. Я опять представляю господину Идгедену снова, предоставляю слово. Пожалуйста, вам слово, господин Идгеден.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Distinguished members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to speak here today, and I am honored to take part in this session, which is focused on a very important topic, where I was also working in the past in my professional career, long years. As the title of this special debate indicates, enhancing energy security by reducing environmental and economic challenges in the OSCE area requires increasing cooperation between our participating states. While energy issues risk becoming a potential source of tension, they also offer many opportunities for fruitful cooperation between energy supplier, consumer, and transit countries. Energy security can stimulate long-term investment and help build a sustainable future, a future in which the consequences of the extraction, processing, transportation, and use of energy resources on climate change and the environment are adequately addressed. Climate change is not a distant threat. We are already feeling its impacts across the region. The weather is getting more extreme, natural disasters are becoming more frequent and intense, causing energy supply disruptions and affecting our infrastructure that depends on energy. Climate change has begun to affect seasonal temperatures and water availability. It will continue to increase our electricity demand, and it will pose new challenges to our power production. Climate impacts have affected every region across the globe and inflicted large costs on our economy. Responding to the security and environmental challenges of energy requires consolidated efforts to form sustainable partnerships. Global climate change negotiations are happening, and nations are working toward a new global climate change agreement to be reached at the 21st Conference of the Parties in Paris in December this year. And you recall that the 23rd annual session of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly held in Baku last summer recognized that environmental challenges such as climate change require world leaders to make compromises at the international level. When advancing dialogue and cooperation on energy issues, the OSCE offers distinct advantages thanks to its comprehensive, multidimensional approach to security and its broad and diverse membership. Following the Ministerial Council in Kiev, the OSCE mandate on energy security was strengthened by two decisions focusing on improving the environmental footprint of energy-related activities and the protection of energy networks from natural and man-made disasters. Since then, these commitments have been brought into sharper focus, and several activities for greater OSCE involvement in energy issues were developed. Allow me to mention just a few. In March, we organized with the OSCE Center in Ashgabat the Inception Workshop for the Center of Excellence on Renewable Energy in Turkmenistan. This year, we'll see new activities for this Center of Excellence, and the OSCE is looking forward to facilitate cooperation in this area and support the development of renewable energy in the region. In June, we worked with the office in Tajikistan and the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources to hold in Dushanbe a regional conference on best practices in energy cooperation. During this conference, it was proposed to establish an energy diplomacy center in Tajikistan. In July, an expert workshop on sharing best practices to protect electricity networks from natural disasters was organized by my office in Vienna. We are currently developing a handbook of best practices on the same topic, and we plan to release it, as mentioned before, in my work program later this year. In October, we supported the program office in Astana to set up the International Forum Future Energy Reduction of CO2 Emissions, held in preparation for the International Specialized Exhibition Expo 2017. In December, in Ashgabat, we took part in the international meeting of experts on reliable and stable transit of energy for sustainable development. It was held in accordance with the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 67/3, and the objective of this meeting was to discuss the process of elaborating a new international legal mechanism. Such a mechanism aims to provide and sustain secure energy supplies to world markets. Let me also add that we have been promoting sustainable energy in the southern Mediterranean region, and my office looks forward to continue its engagement with our partners on this topic. In April 2013, we held an expert workshop in Vienna with representatives of all Mediterranean partners for cooperation, and we are now planning a follow-up activity to share best practices in the use of sustainable energy. Last year, during the OSCE Japan conference that involved our Asian partners for cooperation, the need to address water and energy issues was also recognized by arranging a special session dedicated to this important topic. During all these conferences and workshops, participants have been offered an opportunity to discuss a variety of subjects important for energy cooperation, such as ensuring the necessary conditions for development of energy sector, strengthening regional energy cooperation, security and reliability of energy transport and energy infrastructure, and promoting sustainable energy solutions. Through such activities, the OSCE seeks to stimulate dialogue and cooperation, adding its contribution to a wider energy dialogue which has yet to develop its full potential. Ladies and gentlemen, looking ahead, there is a need to take the energy dialogue to the next level. This includes developing tools, instruments, and regulatory schemes based on shared principles, but also creating opportunities for investment in sustainable energy solutions. In line with the decade of sustainable energy, Sustainable Energy for All, which started last year, energy issues will remain a key topic in our future activities and in the elaboration of the post-2015 development agenda. We are grateful for your support in highlighting the relevance of these topics in your countries, and we look forward to continuing our close cooperation with partner organizations and civil society and to taking further steps towards enhancing energy security and sustainability in the OSCE area. My office stands ready to support our participating states in pursuing these goals. Thank you very much for your attention.
Спасибо, господин Эдгеден. Я приветствую господина Яна Закопача, директора секретариата энергетического сообщества. Вы успели как раз ко времени. Прежде чем, как представить ему слово, я хотела представить господина Копача. До своего назначения директором секретариата энергетического сообщества в декабре 2012 года господин Копач в течение своей карьеры работал в разных должностях. Был членом Президиума Государственной молодежной организации Словении, министром финансов Республики Словения, членом парламента, председателем комитета по бюджету, министром окружающей среды, территориального планирования и энергетики, прокурором, главным директором управления энергетики Министерства экономики Словении. Я опять вас приветствую и предоставляю вам слово. Вам слово, господин Копач.
Хорошо. Thank you to everybody. Thanks for inviting me there to this honorable audience. I'm happy to be among parliamentarians again after many years. And I was invited to present a topic which you can see there on my PowerPoint presentation, importance of international cooperation to ensure energy security. And since I'm Director of Energy Community Secretariat, which doesn't cover all OSCE countries, I can talk about experiences on the territory of energy community. But this experience, I hope, will clearly show how important the international cooperation is for ensuring energy security. So this is the Energy Community map. Energy Community is an organization which was established 10 years ago, and it has 9 members. One member is European Union as a whole, and it has only one voice. And this is the only international organization where the whole EU is speaking with one voice, because it is represented only by European Commission. And on the other side, there are these yellow countries from Western Balkans and Moldova and Ukraine who are contracting parties to Energy Community. So 8 of them, and Turkey, Norway, Georgia and Armenia being observers. Georgia is now negotiating to become a full-fledged member. So this is our family. And the scope of this organization when it was, or the mission of this organization when it was established was to, if I can, I mean everything is written there, but if I say it in 2 sentences, how to export EU a legal framework in energy area, of course, only, because it is energy community, to these neighboring countries, and on the other side, imposing by this or triggering by this a safe legal environment, which is the same as in European Union, and through this mechanism to enhance proper investments in the energy sector of these countries and to merge them into a single energy market. So these countries, yellow, if I can say from the map, are now full-fledged members of European Union in an energy area. They are on the same market, electricity and gas market. They can participate even in adoption of new directives and regulations inside European Union. They can propose new directives and regulations to European Union. They are not that active, but officially they have this possibility, and they are the Energy Community Treaty even has a so-called energy solidarity, energy supply solidarity clause, like NATO has it, which envisages that if one contracting party is under the danger of disruption of supply of gas or electricity, all the other members have to step in, have to help. And this was a mechanism which officially has never been used up till now, but it almost was used last, in autumn last year by Ukraine, because it was under the danger of disruption of supply because of cut off from Russian side. So these were key aims, and the mechanism how we do it is transposing the EU directives in energy sector against. There is a list of all these areas with the number of directives or regulations that are mostly copy-pasted from EU also in these so-called yellow countries, so our core members, not observers. They are from electricity, gas area, environment, competition, renewable energy sources, energy efficiency, and so on and so on. So all these countries from Western Balkans, Moldova and Ukraine are slowly or relatively fast transposing the same legal framework as it is in EU, also on their territory, in all these areas which you can see on the PowerPoint presentation. One piece of legislation, which is called Regulation 994 through 2010, you can see is specially accented, and this is the regulation on security of gas supply. This regulation was adopted in European Union in 2010 after the crisis in Russian-Ukrainian relations in 2009, and it envisaged many mechanisms of mutual cooperation among EU member states. And you know that, or you have heard, I believe, that in the past, in 2009, many European Union member states were quite harmed with the cutting the gas supply through Russian gas supply through Ukraine, and the European Union then discussed how to prepare themselves to be ready if something like this happens again. And they adopted this regulation, which is now being transposed also to these so-called yellow countries, so it means Western Balkans and Ukraine. And I will talk a little bit about this regulation, because it is an illustration of a good international cooperation. This is a map of European Union. this time European Union member states are yellow. And you can see what is the situation now. It means in this moment, in the beginning of 2015. There are countries which have very opened border, so gas pipelines are going from one country to another, and there are countries where the gas flow goes only from one country to another, only in one direction, and there are borders where there are no flows between two countries. And this map is a new one, but in 2009, when we had this first crisis between or the first big gas dispute between Ukraine and Russia, the situation was completely different. At that time, countries were much, there were many more borders where there were no flows, and many more red borders where there were flows only in one direction. Last year, you have perhaps heard about so-called stress tests. This is an illustration what the international cooperation following the Regulation 994 brings. If this is an illustration what would happen if there would be no gas flows from Russia at all for 6 months. If the situation would be as it was in 2009, it would be the illustration on the right side. So, uncooperative approach. You see that few countries would be completely without gas. Finland, Bosnia, I think Macedonia. Then almost without gas would be Hungary, Serbia, Bulgaria, and with very, very huge problems would be Sweden, Poland, 2 of 3 Baltic states, Romania. But on the basis of mechanisms which were envisaged or which are functioning now under the Regulation 994, situation is much better. This is, of course, only a hypothetical situation. On the left side, you have this cooperative approach where you see that only one country, it's Finland, because it is only Finland is directly connected with Russia and with nobody else. All the other countries would have some gas at least, because mechanisms for cooperation under this Regulation 994 are all the flows on the borders have to be bidirectional. So there has to be an infrastructure which allows pumping from one side to another or from another to the one. Then there is third-party access, which allows that the same pipelines are used from whoever, from every single supplier. There is no monopoly, and there is a coordination of actions among transmission system operators, and so on and so on. There are many mechanisms in this Regulation 994, and this is the illustration what cooperative approach brings. There is another illustration. If in the case if there would be 6 months no gas, Russian gas, through Ukraine, but there would be gas, Russian gas through Nord Stream and through some other pipelines which exist through Belarus and then further to Poland. The situation before Regulation 994 would be as it is on the right side. You see that there are 2 countries completely without gas. 3 countries have very, very serious disruptions of gas supply. Romania and Hungary would be also damaged. If we take into account cooperative approach under the Regulation 994, situation is much lighter, without dark red color. This is, again, illustration what the international cooperation means. The reason, or this gas crisis in 2009 somehow made EU sober, that they have to prepare, I mean, it's not enough that you have gas supply from somewhere else, not only from Russia, but you have to have also infrastructure which enables all this competition and potential alternative sources and so on. And this is the reason why European Union entered into a process of recognizing which additional interconnectors are needed to envisage full security of supply. So which would be uninterrupted in any possible case. And you see there, I mean, there are many spots, red spots. You see an illustration of this so-called projects of common interest in gas sector. And this, of course, envisages also some interventions or some reconstructions and some modernizations in energy community contracting parties as well. This is something what is also co-financed by European budget and is entitled entirely for the security of gas supply, but the side effect is also bigger competition because infrastructure allows more gas supply from potential different sources. As European Union adopted its list of projects of energy community, projects of common interest, energy community contracting parties, so these originally yellow countries, Western Balkans, Moldova and Ukraine, adopted its own list of projects of energy community interest. Also this is partially co-financed by EU budget, and you see illustration there which projects are recognized as regionally important for securing the security of gas supply and, of course, also for improving the competition. And another mechanism which was imposed by this Regulation 994, which I didn't mention up till now, is the so-called N-1 infrastructure standard. What means that every single country, perhaps you have heard about this in electricity area, where it means that every country has to have at least one high voltage cable or interconnection with neighbors free in case of urgency. And the same is now applied also in gas sector. So every country has to have some free capacities in gas interconnections with their neighbors to enable reaction, a proper reaction in the case of urgency. And this was adopted in 2010. Not all countries are in compliance with the regulation up till now, but on the left side you can see what was the situation in 2009 or 2010 when this was adopted, and what will be the situation in after these projects of common interest, which were shown earlier on a EU map, will be all finalized. Some of them are under construction, some of them, I mean, construction didn't start yet, but you can see that the whole EU area will be more or less green, what means there will be enough reserved capacities for the case of urgency. This is another illustration what this Regulation 994 brings, and is, of course, a mechanism of obligatory international cooperation. All these infrastructure brings not only a security of supply, but also fulfills other goals like economic growth, affordable energy, jobs, sustainable use of limited resources, and it brings also lower prices. Here you have a clear illustration. What does it mean having competitive market, and what does it mean having uncompetitive market? So countries on eastern side of European Union are more dependent on only gas supply from Russia, because they don't have sufficient infrastructure to bring it from other parts of the world as well. And these are the price levels, and you see that more eastern you are, more expensive the gas from Russia is. Because, and some people joke that if this gas would be transferred to, let's say, another few thousand kilometers more to west, then it would be almost for free. Because, but the transportation costs, of course, are with additional transit routes more and more expensive. So there is no logic. I mean, having this gas, let's say, on eastern part of European Union means less transportation costs, but the final price is much higher. Why? Because there is no competition. Every single supplier, being it Gazprom or whoever, I mean, all around the world, the situation is the same, is always trying to use if it is monopolistic position, to use this position as much as it is possible. So this regulation 994, which I was trying to shortly present, is not only an instrument to improve the security of gas supply, but it's also an instrument to lower prices because of making markets more competitive through infrastructure improvements. And the interdependence among countries for the cooperation and the need for the cooperation among countries will only grow in the future because import dependence is growing. So even not Regulation 994, which I was presenting, will not solve all the problems, but it is a case of a good practice which could be used perhaps in some other regions around the world as well to improve the security of supply and competitiveness. And that's all for the beginning. If you will ask me something, I will be most happy to answer. I was trying to be illustrative what the international cooperation brings. Thank you.
Спасибо большое за выступление. Есть ли вопросы к господину Копачу? Пожалуйста. Лихачев из России, да?
Господин Копач, спасибо вам за этот доклад. Я думаю, не только российская делегация, но многие присутствующие здесь коллеги с интересом слушали ваши размышления человека опытного, который поработал в разных отраслях, который знает и политику, и экономику. Я нащупал несколько противоречий в вашем выступлении. То ли они идут от деликатности, то ли, может быть, даже от некой такой еще неуверенности в тех шагах, которые энергетическое сообщество делает. Так получилось, что 5 лет я работал послом Российской Федерации в Европейском Союзе. Я неплохо знаю эту тематику, проводил первые переговоры по Северному газопроводу, который благо принес и Германии, Нидерландам, Великобритании. Как вы говорите, линейка связи там была сокращена. Много проблем, я с вами согласен, для восточных членов Европейского Союза, восточных государств. И в этой связи я вам не могу не задать вопрос. Если такие сложности существуют, если так сложилось, Россия играет исключительную роль в обеспечении энергетической безопасности Европы, почему европейская бюрократия, не зная, под своим влиянием, то ли под влиянием американцев, то ли еще каких-то факторов, пошла фактически на срыв проекта «Южный поток»? Вы говорите, будет конкуренция. Но какая может быть конкуренция, когда в результате этого цены на газ будут вырастать? Это заставит напрягать бюджеты практически всех или половины членов Европейского Союза. Для того, чтобы конкурировать, надо иметь силы для этой конкуренции. Сегодня же мы наблюдаем о том, что в этих тяжелых условиях зимних российский газ необходим. Мы пошли на очень хорошие контакты, проект с Турцией. Позавчера Путин достиг серьезной, мне кажется, договоренности с руководством Венгрии. Нельзя ли в этих условиях было найти более оптимальный, более разумный и более справедливый путь решения? Каково было официальное заключение вашей организации, вашей структуры в отношении отмены Южного потока? И как говорят французы, апре, а что дальше? Вы думаете, мы будем удалять элементы и картину конкуренции? Мне кажется, мы просто людей, простых граждан, не только Европейского Союза, европейцев, поставили отмену Южного потока в очень тяжелое положение. Извините за откровенность, но я так вот воспринимаю эту ситуацию как дипломат, как политик, как парламентарий России.
Пожалуйста. Вы сразу будете отвечать?
Thank you for the question. Very gladly I'm answering. So South Stream was a project relatively similar to so-called Nord Stream, which comes directly from Russia to Germany. But in European Union, they are adopting, and also in energy community, we are adopting or modernizing our legislation. And in the time of so-called Nord Stream, there were some rules which were then later upgraded with the so-called third energy package. So it means another directive which changes rules a little bit. Which are these major changes? The most important in so-called third energy package is that every gas pipeline or owner of gas pipeline has to allow to use this gas pipeline, that this gas pipeline is used also by other gas suppliers. This is of extreme importance not to misuse the monopoly, because in the past in European Union, many owners of gas pipelines, being German, French, English, whatever, were, of course, said, oh, this is my gas pipeline. Nobody else will send a gas or sell a gas which will be sent through this gas pipeline to any of potentially my consumers or customers. And European Union, to impose better competitivity, and this really lowered prices of gas all over the Europe, imposed this obligation of so-called third-party access. And this obligation was adopted in 2009. So this is Directive 72/2009. And from 2009, European Union has new rules. And these rules, as I said, impose third-party access. The second change, which came in 2009, is settling the tariffs. So not owner of the pipeline is allowed to charge whatever he thinks is possible, because usually monopolists misuse their position. But independent energy regulator has to establish the tariff, which must be cost reflective. So it must be fair, with some profit, but not a misused one. And South Stream, which was promoted by Gazprom, was envisaged in different intergovernmental agreements with Hungary, with Bulgaria, with Serbia, with Austria, with Slovenia, and in many of these agreements were signed before 2009. And they envisaged no third-party access, no role of independent energy regulator, so they left everything into the hands of monopolist or owner of the gas pipeline, which of course is the same time supplier of gas. But after 2009, rules in European Union changed, and some of these intergovernmental agreements with Slovenia and with Austria already respected these new rules. So they were so-called third energy package compliant. Russia agreed with these new rules in European Union. And the only problem then was, I believe more or less prestigious, that Russia didn't want to change these intergovernmental agreements which were agreed already before 2009 in compliance with old rules. Some of these intergovernmental agreements were not even compliant with the rules in EU before 2009. This is also true. And European Commission then said, look, European Union is respecting rule of law. If you will build such a pipeline, it has to be in compliance with rules which are existing in European Union. But Gazprom didn't want to respect these rules and insisted on these old provisions. And this was the problem. And then, because the third energy package envisages also that independent energy regulator has to approve, has to certify this new pipeline, has to bless it before it enters into operation, there was a financial question. Will we, for Gazprom, will we invest billions of euros into this gas pipeline, and then energy regulator in whatever country will say, oops, this is not in compliance with the rules, so it was too risky. And they gave up. But we have to say that this new pipeline, which would be, of course, very expensive, somebody would have to pay for this investment. And gas, which is currently flowing into European Union and energy community contracting parties, is going through old, perhaps outdated gas pipelines in Ukraine, in Belarus, and all these gas pipelines are amortized and relatively cheap. The transport is cheap. But this new modern gas pipeline would, of course, somebody would have to pay it, and this would, of course, be consumers in the future. So I don't agree with the statement that consumers will pay cancellation of this gas pipeline. I think that potentially consumers could even benefit from cancellation of it, but this was never a commercial project. It was always a project with geopolitical importance, which is also for EU important because of security of supply, if something happens in Ukraine. So I believe that non-respect of current EU laws or rules was, of course, the only reason. It was not a political will, because if this investor would respect EU rules, EU. I can tell you my experience. For example, we as Energy Community Secretariat are responsible for approval of tax of exemptions from, because this third energy package envisages also exemption out of rules if the investor proves that this would be needed. So even under third energy package, monopoly is possible, but only for a limited time, not forever. And we were entitled to give an exemption to Trans-Adriatic pipeline, which is now already being built through, from Turkey, Greece, Albania to Italy. We are responsible for, oh, sorry, I started to talk stories. No, I think I told enough and it was understandable. Rule of law is important.
Еще есть желающие задать вопрос? Нет желающих? Тогда переходим к дебатам. У нас есть записанные. Госпожа Нильза, Португалия. Вам слово, госпожа Нильза.
Thank you, Madam Chair, dear colleagues. I start off congratulating for the presentation that was very interesting, but I would like to return to a topic that I began to discuss at the last autumn meeting in Geneva, the topic of climate change and displaced populations. The climate change process and many natural catastrophes, such as droughts and floods, and in long-term desertification or a rise in average sea levels, force millions of people to move. These natural disasters are more and intense, and their impact on people more and more destructive. Climate change has been identified as one of the greatest environmental, social, and economic threats that the planet and humanity currently face. While the causes of climate change are being analyzed and its repercussions projected, it is equally important to anticipate mobility scenarios and strengthen the responses to their humanitarian consequences. The need for global cohesive action is urgent, since all the evidence indicates that there will be around 200 million people displaced by climate change by 2050. The evidence suggests that induced climate and environmental migration will become one of the greatest political challenges on this century. The international community is increasingly acknowledging that climate change and environmental degradation have the potential to produce a level of population displacement that were not at the moment in a position of effectively prevent or resolve, and we all are needed. According to some experts, in the last 2 decades, the number of natural disasters recorded doubled from 2,000 to more than 4,000 per year. In accordance with the same experts, 9 in every 10 natural disasters are now probably linked to the climate. In regions affected by the long-term consequences of climate change, people will move, sometimes in large numbers, to more hospitable areas of their own countries. In other situations, people will look for opportunities to leave their countries for others. The OSCE should take precautions within its area of influence so that it can be an integrated, interested actor in an issue that may threaten the entire traditional framework of states as we know them today. Voluntary or forced migrations continue to increase in number and diversity and evolve extremely rapidly, which places constant pressures on receiving societies and some of our countries. The interaction and integration of these populations and the immigration policies drawn up should be practiced by the relevant host countries without disregarding the problems of terrorism, but providing a coordinated response to the enormous challenge posed by the huge displaced population. In this context, I must praise the Serbian presidency, which announced 2 extremely relevant matters as priorities for this area, so-called water governance and reduction of risks of natural disasters. There are areas where small steps can make all the difference for entire OSCE region. Many of these policies, and chiefly national when they surely need a more global approach. Migration is a result of a more complex international situation which cannot be resolved with rules and policies founded merely on the sovereignty of states derived from the narrow confines of a geography of borders or purely national interests. For refugees caused by environmental reasons and natural catastrophes, of those displaced within a country, the issue becomes even more complex and delicate. The deterioration of environmental conditions and the resulting scarceness of resources, water, arable land, food, firewood, is generally the source of conflict where more vulnerable populations are the target of forced displacement. A first issue that I would like to mention is that there is not a consensual definition, a definition adopted by the United Nations on what an environmental refugee is. The fact that there is no definition means that environmental and climate refugees are not recognized by the Geneva Convention. As a result, they do not have the protection of international organizations in the context of United Nations. Nonetheless, there are several organizations that make estimates on that number, which probably now close to 25 million environmental refugees. It may double in the next 5 years and reach between 150 million and 1 billion in 2050. There is a great amount of uncertainty, but there is certain it has the numbers that are and will be very high. And note that Europe is a point of arrival. It is the destination and goal for many people, particularly from North Africa, but also India, China, and Middle East. It is a point of convergence. There are therefore high migration flows at the moment, and Europe is the preferred destination. And Europe is our domain and our field of action. We cannot fail to take a position on this. These situations clarify the need for links between public policies and different actors responsible for implementing them on the ground. In fact, civil society organizations, states, and international institutions such as the OSCE should work together to that the values in question, human rights, peace, security, development, and environment sustainability, are safeguarded in a balanced, effective way. We talk a great deal about sustainable development, even today. But it is important to remember that we are confronted by several signs of a lack of sustainability. Those signs can be grouped into 4 sectors: inequality of development, extreme severe poverty. I would say that this is the most important sector because it limits all the others, and we are living in a world of increasing extreme and growing inequality. The second is sustainability of energy systems. And this is where we need to discuss the price of energy, as we saw, accessibility and environmental compatibility, which is also fundamental in our countries. The third includes food security, scarcity of water, and loss of biodiversity. And the final sector is climate change. It is important to underline that these 4 sectors are related to each other. They are interdependent, and we must approach their different problems. These different areas where sustainability is lacking in an integrated manner. Today, nature no longer offers us her blessings, but rather an hostile reaction as a response to decades and centuries of human abuse and aggression. On a planet populated by almost 7 billion people, the largest crisis that comes between us and a sustainable future is not in essence economic, but rather a global environmental crisis, a crisis that has become visible to all more and more extreme events linked to the climate change process. How can we governance models, mechanisms and processes be modified at local, regional, national and transnational level? How can international cooperation especially in the OSCE area, be effectively increased to guarantee the transition to sustainable development? There are some of the questions to which we need to provide answers. Thank you.
Спасибо. Уважаемые коллеги, не возражайте, если мы установим регламент для выступающих 5 минут. Следующее слово господин Митчелл, Канада. Вам слово, господин Митчелл.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, governments across the OSCE region face significant challenges in balancing energy security and economic objectives with the need to meet environmental goals. This point has been made frequently this afternoon extremely well. I, for one, applaud the efforts of the OSCE to deal with this balance, particularly with climate change. But as we all know, whether we like it or not, fossil fuels will remain an important part of the energy mix needed to support economic growth life for some time to come. I come from the Canadian province of Alberta, where I live 400 kilometers from the oil sands. The oil industry is vital to Canada, to Alberta. That provincial economy's GDP is enhanced by 25% due to oil and energy products, fossil fuels, and the Canadian economy's GDP is 10% enhanced by that industry. But at the same time, I am deeply concerned, and many Canadians, most Canadians, are deeply concerned with climate change. We don't take this issue lightly. 3 Canadian provinces, accounting for just under half of Canada's population, currently use some form of carbon tax. The province of Ontario, which is Canada's largest province, is also considering options to put a tax on carbon, which would mean that carbon pricing regimes in Canada would apply to 86% of all Canadians. Ontario, our largest province, has also eliminated coal-fired electricity generation and has a burgeoning solar industry. My home province of Alberta has enough installed wind capacity to power over 600,000 average-sized homes, and we are making tremendous progress, genuine progress, with carbon capture and storage technologies. 75% of all the electricity generated in Canada is generated from hydroelectric sources. A fierce debate is underway in Canadian society about the best way to meet our energy needs without compromising the environment for future generations. I believe, many of us believe, that the resolution of this debate lies in using wealth from today's traditional energy to create a renewable energy and conservation future. Canada has the potential to make a major contribution to global energy security. Diversifying our export markets, including to Europe, is key to realizing this potential. Coincidentally, perhaps a happy coincidence, to ensure energy and environment security, many OSCE countries need to diversify their energy sources. On the other hand, Canada represents a safe and reliable supply of crude oil and other petroleum products. We have an abundance of other energy resources and expertise, and we are exploring innovative ways to meet environmental challenges. I know that most, if not all, OSCE countries, too, are fighting to find a balance amongst energy security, economic growth, and environmental priorities. Canada, a stable democracy, a reliable friend, can help. Thank you for your attention.
Спасибо. Следующий.
Thank you. Mr. Hygienis of Cyprus will be the next to speak. You have the floor.
Global energy demand is expected to substantially increase by 2040, with emerging economies making up much of the growth. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climatic Change, in its 2014 report, points at recent man-made greenhouse gas emission being the highest in history. Consensus must therefore prevail at the UN Climate conference in Paris next December towards a robust, legally binding post-2015 regime to limit temperature increase. A renewable energy roadmap to 2030 for Cyprus, which the Cyprus Ministry of Energy has developed with the support of the International Renewable Energy Agency, has shown that the renewable energy, solar photovoltaics and wind, could provide 25 to 40% of Cyprus' total energy supply and create thousands of jobs, while the power generation cost will significantly drop. Increased concerns pertaining to security of supply stress the high relevance of the Eastern Mediterranean region as a new promising source of oil and gas supply and an alternative route for European and international markets. Transportation routes for gas resources prove to be a very complex matter in light of the region's volatile geopolitical situation. The Republic of Cyprus has experienced been the target of violations of its sovereign rights by Turkey. A second NAVTEX is now in force, which Turkey illegally issued in early January in order to continue its seismic survey in areas of Cyprus' exclusive economic zone, where foreign companies are conducting drilling activities in search of hydrocarbon deposits upon the license authorization of the Republic of Cyprus. We appeal to Turkey once again to respect the sovereign rights of the Republic of Cyprus as per the repeated calls of the international community. The Republic of Cyprus has their own natural resources. Let's use these resources for strengthening the peace, prosperity, and stability for all people in Cyprus, Turk Cypriot, and Greek Cypriot in a united Cyprus. The natural gas is catalyst for peace, and there, where energy available is, there we need security. In this context, we also urge Turkey not to proceed with its first power plant project, Anakyou, a highly seismic site just 19 kilometers opposite Cyprus. We seized this assembly more recently at our annual session in Istanbul 2013 on warnings by Turkish and foreign experts against these projects. According to Turkish Cypriot press, reactions have also increased among Turkish Cypriots against radioactive particles reaching Cyprus through air, even more so in the event of an accident. Achieving an energy security community constitutes a crucial necessity in light of oil sliding prices, as well as energy often used as a political tool and as a major financing resource of jihadist terrorist activities, stress the urgent need for a sounder energy global regime which will be open, inclusive, transparent, and competitive. In the context of Helsinki Plus 40, the OSCE must substantially increase its outreach and visibility also in this field by further fostering dialogue and synergy at the sub-regional, regional and international levels. The EU brokered gas accord between Russia and Ukraine last October and the very recent agreement in Minsk for trilateral talks to be launched on energy issues point to the potential multiple role of energy towards de-escalation. This development provides ground for thought and action that must be further explored. Last but not least, it is essential that the great input of OSCE regarding energy-related challenges and opportunities be duly reflected in the OSCE Mediterranean dimension and eventually in a review Mediterranean conference, which we will deal with the role of this organization in the Eastern Mediterranean region. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Спасибо. Регламент 5 минут.
Thank you. We have a 5-minute rule. Mrs. Bilkov, you have the floor.
I would like to offer some comments on the issue of European energy security. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Kopacz for his wonderful presentation, which has covered many of legal and technical issues, and I can omit these technical issues. We heard the name of Ukraine many times today as a name of country which is at deep crisis currently. And I'd like to submit to you that one of the reasons why we are at such crisis is our country dependence on Russian energy supply. In the wake of the Ukrainian crisis, there is an increasing realization also among European Union and NATO member states that the business as usual cannot continue. Gazprom still meets more than half of Ukraine's gas demand and supplies close to a third of Europe's import, roughly half of which went through Ukraine just in 2013. But regardless which path you choose to transport a gas from such an unstable and aggressive supplier, you may see such strong and severe circumstances as we see right now in Ukraine. Who stands to lose most if energy again becomes a weapon that is used in the ongoing standoff over Ukraine? The stress tests conducted by the European Commission show that the countries of southeastern Europe run the highest risk in the case of disruption of gas supply from Russia. Therefore, using efficiently the primary interconnectors, like between Ukraine and Slovakia, is currently the most urgent step to undertake to bolster European energy security. This reserve law can ensure that southeastern Europe has full access to European gas market liquidity. In our view, strengthening the dialogue and cooperation on stable energy supply, especially in the area of transportation system, should remain among the most important issues on the agenda of the OSCE. Ukraine is the best way to supply gas from Russia, and the OSCE should acknowledge it and to take a lead on making this way secure and beneficial for all the countries involved. While we often hear talks on how to get the issue resolved by passing Ukraine, I submit to you that this equation is not possible to be resolved without Ukraine being an integral part of the solution. New gas interconnectors between the Central and Eastern European countries have interconnected EU energy islands and allow a much better crisis supply of gas, together with the new reverse flow capacities. However, not all of the energy islands have been interconnected. Once again, we think that there could be a new role for Ukraine in this case. Serbia, Bulgaria, Moldova, Romania, Hungary, and Poland could benefit more from being interconnected with Ukraine. Ukraine's vast underground storages that amount to nearly 40% of EU's total capacity are also being offered to interested parties to build reserves and to take advantage of the seasonality of gas prices. Our neighbors that I have just mentioned should integrate this solution into their energy security plans. The strategic question is no longer whether Europe has alternative gas import diversification options. It is rather whether European member states have the political will and strategic vision to oppose Russian pressure and to stand by Ukraine's further integration into European community, formulate coherent national strategies, and to bring national interests and strategies in compliance with all the declared common EU energy and gas diversification policies. Ukraine itself is going through a major reform in terms of gas and energy market, and we appreciate energy community efforts to help us. The best way to support Ukraine today is to create a transparent, free, and stable energy market in our country, with the EU countries being the stakeholders in the main gas market operators. The OSCE has a clear role in providing capacity building
on energy diversification, use of renewable energy resources, and energy efficiency, and can make a valuable contribution to promoting sustainable energy. And we will welcome OSCE attempts and projects integrating Europe into creation of the stable energy market in Ukraine, and we commend the work of the OSCE field presence in the areas of energy supplies, energy efficiency, water management, and other pressing environmental concerns. Thank you.
Спасибо. Следующее.
Thank you. Mr. Azarpati of Malta has the floor next. You have the floor, sir.
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. This morning, Ms. Isabel Santos, as chairperson of the General Committee of Democracy and Humanitarian Questions, remarked that our interventions, rather than on the past, we should concentrate on the future. Indeed, a very interesting remark. The past, with all its good and bad decisions or actions, is now gone and will never come back. Our aim should be focused on how we, as members of the OSCE, will succeed to gain a better future for our region. The recent chapters in the OSCE area has to be perceived with a certain degree of realism and caution. While the spirit of maintaining dialogue and cooperation should be galvanized, attempts at reaching unattainable goals under the present circumstances would be pointless. It will be more realistic if any such attempts be dealt with more sensibly, in a way that is based more on practical than theoretical consideration. In my opinion, our aims should also be based more on the social economic dimension. Some overall recommendations in this direction could include adopting common guidelines and attainable objectives. To achieve these goals, the respective national programs of the OSCE countries should include poverty reduction by introducing new energy network available to all countries alike, trade capacity development, especially by creating investment that result in sustainable energy, sustainable water management and distribution, including the management and access to water in the Mediterranean countries, national agenda for international development. Joint assessment by Mediterranean states of the evolution of water resources in the region and its impact on stability thereon. And last and not the least, joint common programs for infrastructure development of energy in the OSCE area. We should have a political will to attain these goals for the prosperity of our region. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Спасибо.
Thank you. The next will be Mr. Ibrahimov of Azerbaijan. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Distinguished participants, as we know, energy security is an important element of the national security of any country. And for that reason, the establishment of an effective system for using different varied types of energy sources is of great importance for the energy supply for all countries, and a way of protecting your economy from external and internal threats. It's also important for optimizing your environmental situation as well. And in order to do this, my country has undertaken various initiatives which are to do with the large-scale infrastructure for our oil and gas. We have the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, which of course is of enormous importance in providing not only Azerbaijan energy, but Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan energy as well, through Turkey to Europe. We also provide gas to Georgia and Turkey via the Erzurum route. At the present time, we're also working very fast to build our southern gas corridor from the enormous Shah Deniz field to take that gas to Western Europe. The Southern Corridor is an Azerbaijan initiative which has now become an international project and is again to provide gas through Turkey and then onwards through Greece, Albania to Italy. It will be Italian, Greek and Bulgarian companies which will be buying that gas from Azerbaijan, and then other European countries as well. In my country, of particular importance is protecting our country and our economy from not only economic threats, but from environmental ones as well. Over the last decade, Azerbaijan's economy has been the fastest growing economy in the world. And that has been achieved through diversifying our economy, as we see from the fact that the recent survey by the World Economic Forum for competitivity, Azerbaijan has risen to number 38 in the world rankings. However, there is still the external threat from Armenia. Part of Azerbaijan's territory has been occupied by Armenia, and the occupiers are providing environmental threats. They are polluting the territory, polluting the ground, the water, and the air, and they are destroying the flora and the fauna by using their obsolete nuclear power station, which is a danger to the whole region. We consider that this should be discussed at the next meeting of our committee. Thank you. Chair, thank you. Next to speak will be Mr. Achikos of Turkey. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear colleagues, I want to thank to all experts for their informative and fruitful presentation. Energy security is today increasingly associated with concepts such as foreign policy, national security, economic growth, and sustainable development. In other words, energy security is becoming rather a strategic concept. Being a country with growing energy demand, we attach importance to secure our supplies. To this end, diversification of both routes and sources is a great importance. My country is aspiring to contribute to Europe's energy security as well. Mr. Chair, let me say a few words to my Greek Cyprus friends. Turkey follows with concern the Greek Cypriot administration's continuing unilateral research activities of hydrocarbon resources in its so-called exclusive economic zone without taking into account the Turkish Cypriots' detailed and concrete cooperation proposal for fair sharing. The common objective and priority of Turkey and Turkish Cypriot side is to reach a just and lasting negotiated settlement to the Cyprus issue, which has been lasting more than 50 years based on the inherent constitutive power of two peoples, their political equality and co-ownership of the island. As a guarantor, Turkey is determined to maintain its constructive support, as has been the case up till now. Turkey, however, expects the Greek Cypriots to refrain from acting as if it is the sole owner of the resources of the island, to halt its unilateral research activities, and to adopt an understanding with a view Greek Cypriots will not have, with a view to establish a new partnership. We also hope that this irresponsible attitude of the Greek Cypriots will not have repercussions on the comprehensive negotiation process. We hope that the objective of securing a more prosperous future for both sides through the water and will be transported to the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus by the end of the year, the natural resources of the island and other opportunities that will come up after the settlement is being shared by all parties. Nevertheless, as it was stated repeatedly, if the priority of the Greek Cypriot is to act unilaterally over the natural resources, this will never be accepted. Turkey calls on the international community to act in order to prevent the proactive and unilateral steps of the Greek Cypriots. Until it is done, all kind of support to Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus' future steps of conducting seismic research activities, acquiring a drilling platform, and dispatching it to an area to be determined, which are necessary to protect its inherent rights over these resources, we will provide it by us. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mrs. Chair.
Спасибо.
Thank you. Mr. Yeguden, Mr. Kopacz, do you have any response?
Нет вам. Если есть вам что сказать?
Would you like to say a few words?
You mean on all issues which were mentioned? They were very diverse. I think that there are many open issues which on the end can be somehow underlined that it has to be underlined that only peaceful discussion and respect of the rule of law and also respect of all interested parties can bring to some success. There is no magic formula for solving many problems which were mentioned during this debate, and the processes are not simple. But I believe that with the principles which I just mentioned, everything can be manageable. The fact is that the world is changing. Once in the past it was very Eurocentric, I could say. Many Europeans felt that Europe is center of the world. It's not the case anymore. Long ago is not any case anymore. But also old, let's say, empires are losing their role, and new players are coming on surface with new views, new needs, new interests, and all this has to be, and also this international cooperation has to be adapted to these new facts. The humanity is going on, and we cannot change the time. We cannot freeze the time. So I'm talking very, very general, and I believe that you have heard some such nice words many times, but I really can't comment concrete statements because they were so diverse. I would just like to say that energy community, which I represent today, is, I believe, a success story of a good cooperation. And I have to underline that in energy community, every single country has one voice. And this, on one side, big European Union, on the other side, let's say, small Albania or, I don't know, Moldova or big Ukraine. But on the end, we all have to, we have also majority voting in some cases, but usually we always come to everything under consensus. And this unique organization is based on the rule of law. And this is important because political declarations are nice, but rule of law is most important also for international cooperation. Sorry for being too general, and thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to thank you for the invitation to speak at the General Committee here and to share our work program and our planned activities in the field of energy. Energy is a very important field. As I mentioned before in my presentation, we will continue to work with our participating states in regard and strengthen our activities, especially in the field of sustainable energy and protection of energy infrastructure and also energy security issues. Thank you very much.
Спасибо вам.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. All those who asked to have already spoken, but I see one of the representatives of Ireland raising his hand. Mr. Spring, would you like to have literally 2 minutes?
It's more than adequate. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I just would like to make an observation that as a peripheral country, there seems to be an awful lot of conversation that revolves around pipelines from Russia and from parts of the world which aren't particularly adjacent to us in the peripheries. But there seems to be a lack of knowledge and, I think, interest in renewable energies, particularly marine energies. I have been a part of what's called the British and Irish Parliamentary Assembly and been a rapporteur for a renewable energies report. And at the moment, it seems that Europe as a continent has fallen far behind, particularly Japan and some other parts of the world, with an attitude and an ability to commit funds to research and development. And that's where the future is. And as the man from Malta said, we should really look to the future. And we talked about gas and oil, etc. And the man from Alberta talked about 600,000 homes being powered by wind energy. But there's also things that we can do as a continent with so much woodland or biomass capacity or renewable wind energy, offshore energy. But it's going to take some commitment of funds. So I'd encourage everybody here that's going home to their national parliaments to look at the idea of making sure that you're incentivising, and we have EMAR in the Orkney Islands off of Scotland, which is the European Maritime Agency for research, that should be funded, and we should try and drive this forward in a collaborative fashion and provide security for everybody and a better environment as well. But thank you, Madam.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to your proposal. It's a broad field and everybody has every opportunity to develop the material at our disposal. So I'd like to thank everybody for all your input to this session today. We've really had a very full and productive session. And may I thank our interpreters. There was a technical hitch at the beginning with the Italian, but you've all worked so very hard, including our interpreters. I would like on that to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.